grounding thing, and I was very, very skeptical at first. I was like, oh, I take my shoes off and all these things are going to happen. I don't know about that, but I tried it. I started implementing it in my life. I started grounding before I went to bed, as soon as I woke up in the middle of the day when I started to get tired on my lunch breaks. And I noticed immediately my energy levels were so much better. My recovery was so much better. I was performing so much better. My injuries were occurring less often. I was like, okay, these things are happening. There's something going on here. And so I started to look into it. I started to, beyond the performance side of things, I was like, wow, this has so much to offer people beyond that. And from there, I just kind of became obsessed with it for the last, 6 years. I've been obsessed with this topic. And I decided to start the Grounded Athlete. And the Grounded Athlete was basically my way of condensing this information and making it digestible for people. So that's what I've been doing for the last 4.5 years since I started the Grounded Athlete, I started off making these long format videos, like these 15-minute videos, basically telling people how this is affecting a certain process in your body. And from there, that's what I've been doing for the past 4.5 years with this. So
it's interesting that you come at it from like the performance lens, because you see a lot of it on Twitter. I don't really see grounding on like any other social platform really, but I think that's where I came across it first. And it is one of those things where you're skeptical the first time you hear it. I'm curious how you kind of figured out or like measured the improvements that you saw from grounding, or like what was like the light bulb moment where it was like, this is actually working? Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't gathering data by any means. I felt I was sleeping better. I was getting deeper sleep. And I guess how I was gauging it was how I felt the next day after a really, really hard workout that I'd grounded before and after. I was like, I felt amazing the next day. Like I could repeat the workout that I did yesterday, because usually when I finish like a really hard, intense session, the next day I'm wrecked. Like I'm not gonna be able to do anything because I could barely move. And then that was one of the first things I noticed when I started grounding like consistently. I was like, oh, I feel so good the next day. Like something's going on here. So that was, I would say, one of the big things that how it was gauging, what was going on here. But my sleep was so much better. My recovery was so much better. And then just overall my energy, because usually I would get like a 2-3 p.m. like crash during the middle of the day. So back when I had a full-time job, I was using my lunch breaks to just spend 30-40 minutes outside just barefoot. I was like, oh my gosh, my energy levels are insane right now. Usually I'd be wanting to take a nap or something during that time. But and there's so many other things beyond the performance side of things, but that's definitely what got me into it initially. So
it's crazy when you're describing just how good you felt from a hard workout, the recovery. Yeah. It seems too good to be true, where you're like, literally, I just take my shoes off and I feel amazing. But so many people that are into this movement report similar things to what you're saying. So for grounding, does it have to be barefoot in grass or in soil, or can it be barefoot anywhere to get the benefits of it?
Yeah, so grounding, just very simply, it's just being in electrical contact with the surface of the earth. That can be done outside, barefoot, directly on the surface of the earth, or it can be done inside in here. If you have a grounding mat that's connected to a wall outlet, or grounding sheet, grounding pillowcase, there's many ways to do it. But as long as you're establishing electrical contact with the surface of the earth, you are, by definition, grounded. And that's measurable. It's measurable on your body. You can measure it with a multimeter. But that is the very simple definition of grounding. Is it's just being in electrical contact with the surface of the earth.
Got it. I'm interested in the fact that you have a background in physics. You're into something that's very esoteric. Yeah. So I'm just curious, when you got into this space, do you feel like the physics background initially made you skeptical, or did it kind of help you connect the dots?
Yeah, so I had originally started out as a biology major, and then I had realized everything that was going on here, the biology, the biochemistry, you break it down to its most fundamental level is physics. It's physics, it's protons, it's neutrons, it's electrons. If you break it down to its simple building blocks, that's what's going on. And I was like, I'm never going to understand what's really going on here in biology, biochemistry, if I don't understand the underlying physics. And so I was like, okay, I'm just going to study physics, and I'll figure out everything with the biology later, but this is what needs to be understood first. And, you say it's very esoteric, and I agree, but what's really going on here is a very biophysical process. It's charge transfer between your body and the surface of the earth. So I think they're very much related, and that's how I go about teaching people about it, because it's not enough to tell somebody, go be barefoot, it's good for you, it's anti-inflammatory, like it's all these different things. I'm the person that's like, why is it good for me? Why is it anti-inflammatory? Why are these things happening? And so that's when I kind of wanted to become a spokesperson for this specific process. And so I I learned everything that I possibly could about it, applied my academic background, and really made this digestible for people. But, in today's day and age, people like numbers. They like data. They want to know, the science behind it. And, people that are just, go outside, be barefoot. That's not enough.
Yeah.
It's not enough for people these days. We're very in tune with the science of a lot of things now, the nutrition, exercise, and all that. So, the same thing applies with grounding. We need to teach people the actual science behind what's going on.
What sort of stats are there, if any, that you kind of like throw at people when they ask those deeper level questions? Like, because I'm thinking like getting more sunlight is another thing where it's like, it's just obvious. It is one of those things that it's good for you, but most people are like kind of either face some resistance to doing it, or it's like so simple that they think that it's like too woo woo or something.
Yeah, it's a great question. So when somebody tells me, grounding isn't a thing, so I usually point them in the direction of something that's plugged into their outlet. So there's a third hole in these wall outlets around here, and that's the grounding port. So that essentially takes excessive electrical energy in the case of a ground fault or a short circuit. That gives that excessive current a place to go, and that's into the surface of the earth. So electrical grounding has been utilized in the electrical industry for a very, very long time, and that's for safety to people and to the equipment. So it's the same process with the body. So what that's doing is it's the earth is essentially a sink for electrical charge. And so when you come into electrical contact with the earth, it's essentially taking any excessive electrical charge from your body and it's dissipating it into the surface of the earth. And that contributes to your body's electrical homeostasis. And when you think of homeostasis, you don't really think of that electrical side of your body, but your body's very much electrical. And so that electrical homeostasis needs to be maintained. And one of the biggest ways, I'd say the biggest way that it's maintained is through the surface of the earth grounding.
Really liked your response earlier when I think I coined grounding as being esoteric, and you were like, yes, it's branded as esoteric, but this is just like a science-based thing based on your previous explanation. It reminds me a lot of just meat-based diets too, where it's like considered an esoteric thing, but just from a scientific perspective, these are some of the most nutrient-dense foods you can possibly be eating. So I always think it's interesting between walking the fine line between these things are branded as esoteric, but it's actually real science that we've just lost over the last 50 plus years.
Yeah. And going back to the outlet thing, if you're denying what I'm saying, if you're denying this whole grounding thing, there's no reason to have all of these in every single electrical outlet that's used around the world. Like, this is very much an established process for electrical energy. So I've been wanting people to realize the biological aspect of that, and that's what I've been doing for the past 4.5 years of doing the Grounded Athlete. So.
Is lower inflammation the biggest benefit that people will see from grounding, or are there other things that kind of speak to the power of grounding? Yeah.
So in the book that I'm finishing up, I tried to condense grounding down to its core mechanisms of what's going on when you're grounded. I call it the big three. And the big three, number one, is that it's increasing the density of negative charge in your body, and that's contributing to electrical homeostasis that I talked about earlier. That's the state that your body's supposed to be in, electrically grounded to the earth, because humans have